This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you in part by Telex, the interconnection company, owners and operators of 56 Marietta, the most network-rich co-location facility in the Southeast. Tag TV and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. Corporation or financial institution, gaming company or government entity, independent sales organization or merchant with one location or 10,000 across the globe, worldwide, world-class electronic transaction processing through high-speed, robust electronic networks is the very bloodstream of today's global commerce. Billions of business and consumer payment card and money transfer transactions happen each and every year for customers of financial transaction services in the United States, Canada, Europe, and Latin America. Comprehensive business-to-business money transfers, cash management, financial electronic data interchange, management information, and reporting services. More than just moving money, financial transaction processing today means accelerating the transfers of funds and the seamless flow of information. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, October 27, 2009, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. The focus on financial processing and the seamless flow of data continues with the CIO of one of the world's largest transaction processors, as Tino speaks with Michael Reidenbach, CIO for Global Payments. Starting with the company in 1993, Michael now heads up the company's systems, network computer operations, and telecommunications for all of its U.S. business, as well as the project management office and product division, responsible for all of Global Payments' overall system architecture, major project initiatives, and product offerings. Prior to Global, Mike was a pilot and instructor pilot for the Air Force after graduating from the U.S. Air Force Academy and has flown numerous operational missions throughout the world, including Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Local headquartered industry leader and a CIO educated right here in Georgia, now top technologist for U.S. business of a world-class, world-leading leader in financial transaction processing. The Tech Talk doesn't get much better as Tino speaks with Global Payments Chief Information Officer Michael Reidenbach.
Mike, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Congratulations, first of all. I understand you have a new title, some new responsibilities. You're now Executive VP and CIO of Global Payments. Is that correct?
It is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's start out by just talking a little bit about Global Payments. Would you describe Global Payments as a technology company?
Yes and no. I think really we're a service provider. We provide electronic transaction processing to merchants, and we have a lot of organizations, independent sales organizations, that sell our services to merchants and individuals that want to accept electronic transactions. So in a lot of ways, we're a service provider, but we're a strong user of technology to enable us to provide the service in the first place, as well as all the support for the merchants and all of our customers.
Now, Global spun off another public company, I think it's called National Data, back in early 2001. And tell me a little bit about how technology has changed since then.
Well, I think it's probably a twofold answer. We had a lot of catch-up to do coming out of being spun out of another company. We had a lot of infrastructure that we had to put in place for ourselves that we had as a consequence of being as part of another company. But then we also had to enhance and add technology to create a best-in-class service for all of our customers. One example of that is we are developing a new next-generation transaction processing system that we refer to as G2 that is light years ahead of any of our previous systems.
All right. The CIO's mission has certainly changed their role in the organization, their responsibility for the organization since that 2001 period. And I imagine that you're very involved with the Global Payments overall mission. So how would you describe your role in respect to the organization and its mission?
Well, it's really to be a provider to the rest of the organization. We when we spun out of National Data back in 2001, we had the name Global Payments, but we really weren't earning that name. We were just processing in the United States, and then early in 2001, we expanded into Canada, and since then we've expanded into over 30 countries processing transactions. So in that time, one of my roles is to be able to facilitate all that in such a way that we provide 5 nines of service for all of our customers, but also figuring out the most efficient way to do that. Since in the last 8 years, since we've become our own company, communications have changed a lot. Our ability to route transactions have changed a lot. The technology upon which all of our systems is built has changed a lot. And there's been a lot of changes, a lot of exogenous factors about data security and privacy and personal information, not only in the U.S. but worldwide. So one of my roles is to make sure that we stay between the lines for all the rules and regulations that we have to process under and figure out the most efficient way to do that.
And I can imagine being in now 30 different countries that your role has changed quite a bit in respect to some of the responsibilities you have there. Some lessons learned that you want to tell our listeners about?
I think probably the biggest one is time. We really underestimated what it really means to have an office halfway around the world in Hong Kong or Taiwan or China, just setting up meetings and getting things done. I have meetings with Hong Kong probably once or twice a week, and someone on the call is either eating breakfast or eating dinner and is out of the office, and it really takes a while to get used to that. And when we go set up a conference call, we'll have people in the Czech Republic and Russia and London and the U.S. and Canada and Hong Kong. It's a big logistics issue just to communicate.
So shifting gears a little bit back to you and your role with the company, so I think our listeners always like to hear about the challenges, certainly the opportunities, but the challenges sometimes are a bit more fun to talk about. So if you could pick one challenge, what would be your biggest challenge, would you say, today, and why?
I would probably have to say security, data security, protecting the data, probably more than anything else. And the reason is because it's changing all the time. Not only our ability or our capabilities to protect our data, but the fact that there are people out there that are trying to come up with new ways every day of obtaining our data. And they're very good at what they do, and they're very smart about it. And so we're constantly having to adapt and think from a different perspective about how we protect our sensitive and confidential data, and how we do that in a number of different countries worldwide.
One last question. In terms of outsourcing, over the last several years, certainly the world has moved to an outsourcing model much more than it did in the past. Yet it seems like recently there's maybe some movements back. We hear about offshore and onshore and having folks work for you that are very close but maybe not in the office. So what's your philosophy on all that?
We've never been a big fan of outsourcing, me personally or really the company. We really want to have a control over our destiny, and we believe that the more you outsource, the less you have of that control. But we do believe in self-sourcing. We have offices in Prague and in Taipei and in several cities in China. And so as we integrate those operations into our company, we find out, hey, there's 5 people in our office in Prague that know how to do a certain skill, and that's applicable to a project that's being done in Canada. So we will leverage our assets worldwide to get projects done. But we're not a huge outsourcing company. It's certainly not anything that's critical to our core processing.
So is self-sourcing a new trend? Is something you guys sounds like you've been building on since 2001 at least?
Yeah, we've been trying to really build on it in the last 5 years. I think before then we really didn't have the critical mass, and there wasn't enough integration. Each division was off doing their own things, but we now are trying to look at things really from a worldwide perspective. We're not going to implement any products, as an example, really that are market specific that can't be brought to another market if we choose to do it and if the market needed that type of product. So in the past, we would have developed products in the U.S. market, for example, that don't support the EMV standard because EMV isn't in the U.S. market, but it's pretty much in every market outside the U.S. So we're going to, when we bring new products to market, it'll have EMV in it, even if it's a U.S. product, because we know at some point in the future we may want to bring that product somewhere else.
Well, Mike, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.